Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about a precon that I really underestimated. So this is a precon that I got as a part of this Summer of Magic event, which is really cool. I actually absolutely love these events here, which I'll talk about a little bit because they are unique. I think I don't know if the States has this kind of thing, but it's a big thing over here in Australia and, you know, in New Zealand, like the Pacific APAC, I think they call it. And it's really, really fun. And I took part in the Chaos Commander on Friday night that's just gone past. And it was honestly, yeah, I got a precon as a part of it, which is just really, really enjoyable. And I was playing it and oh man, I so underestimated this. Now it is a precon that I do suggest you guys buy, and I have suggested in the past, but I didn't realize quite how strong it can be. So let's get first into the Summer of Magic stuff, because I think that's pretty interesting. But before we do that, you know, make sure you guys subscribe, make sure you share the video around. This could be the last video you see from me because, you know, YouTube's algorithm is all funky and stuff. And that means that you'll miss out on our 10,000 subscribers celebration, which we are so close to. Look at this. Look at that. Oh, I'm getting pretty emotional because I am so surprised that this is going so well. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much. You know, this is the best place for news, best place to talk about precons, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to focus on that too much. Anyway, so this one here that I was taking part in is the Chaos Commander. So essentially, you know, they have this last year as well. There is a few different events that happen as a part of this Summer of Magic. And as a part of it, there's like, you know, a whole bunch of promos. The promos this year are pretty cool. You can get a special mat here. There is what they call it. I think they call it like a drink holder or something like that. It's a stubby holder, or at least, you know, in Australia we call them stubby holders. They're for your cans of beer. There's a mini backpack. There's a glass opener here, like a bottle opener. Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, as a part of it, you get these as long as you attend a few events throughout the course of December and January. And it's a way for them to kind of encourage people to come along when there's a lull between different sets and everything. So the one that I took part in was the Chaos Commander. And as a part of it, you get a random precon from these 4 sets from this year. Unfortunately, Fallout wasn't included. I wish it was. And no Modern Horizons either. But it's the 4 kind of, you know, standard sets. You've got Murders, Outlaws, Bloomburrow, and Duskmourn. So some really, really great precons as a part of this, because a lot of the precons this year have been really decent. Yeah, I can't say that there's really one that I would suggest kind of skipping in these precons. I don't know, maybe like the most wanted one, or maybe I don't know. I think that honestly all of them you can make use of. And yeah, it was really, really fun. So as a part of it, I got a random precon, and when I got there, I kind of went up and he's like, oh, hey, so, you know, I was a bit late for it. And pulled out my precon. I'm like, okay, looked at it. And I'm like, I already have this one. He's like, all right, well, what about this one here? And I'm like, yeah, I do already have that one as well. And then he showed me this third one. And I'm like, oh, well, I did have that one, but I pulled it apart and, you know, built it completely different, which was this Death Toll precon. So this is the Death Toll precon from Duskmourn, purely based around mill and then reanimation from that mill. And as opposed to some of the other kind of mill-based deck that we've had, or precons that we've had, this one is a lot more heavy on the mill stuff. You know, we've got, if we have a look at the mill cards throughout here, you've got, you know, 7 different creatures that mill. You've got 5 enchantments, an instant, and a planeswalker that all mill, which is really nice. Like, it's all self-mill. So your whole aim of it is to mill stuff into your graveyard, and then you use winter and some other things that are within the deck to be able to reanimate and bring them back onto the battlefield. I think that by the time it was getting to the end of the game, I had 3/4 of my deck in the graveyard. Yeah, 3/4 of my deck in the graveyard, probably like 20 plus cards that were exiled because of winter, and it was working incredibly well. I was really surprised at quite how much I could mill as a part of it, and it worked just incredibly well and was incredibly well rounded. And I think that honestly, it's moving up there in regards to precons that I would suggest for newer players. And Winter was the commander. I used Winter as the commander here, who is kind of like both an engine to do what the deck wants, which was self-mill, and then also he's like the payoff with that reanimation with the delirium. And originally, as I thought, like, you know, the exiling stuff from your graveyard kind of feels a little bit bad because you're exiling cards from your graveyard, and that means that they're not there to be able to proc delirium later. But I had enough mill within the deck to be able to not stress about that too much because I was just, you know, continuously milling. So I had enough things in there that I could, you know, get rid of one land here or something along those lines. And then, you know, like, and because of the fact that it just cares about card types, you don't need to exile 4 cards with it. If you've got like an artifact, land, and an enchantment creature, that is your 4 card types within those. So you need to only exile 2 and then you get to reanimate 1. The finality counters, as I thought, do feel bad with it. I hate finality counters because they just mean that you don't have the option of bringing it back later, unfortunately. But at least, you know, you don't mind too much about it with certain things. So what was the really powerful things about this deck, I think, is the topic here, because why did I underestimate it? There was a few different things that kind of brought me up, and I will say that I would have won the game. I went out third. I would have won if not for the fact that my opponent had the perfect counterspell at the perfect time and was able to, you know, counter something that then meant that they were able to win later on, which is they countered my Demolisher spawn. And because of the fact they countered that, they were able to then, like the card that they countered it with was one that counters it and puts it into exile, and then they can play it at any time later on, which was from the jump scare precon. There's like a, whoops, that's not jump scare. They countered it with the Sphinx here, this one here. When it turns up, counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard. You may play that card without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. So they managed to counter my Demolisher spawn with it, and then from there they had a Scoot Swarm that popped off, and then they were able to win because they had, you know, enough Scoot Swarms that were all 4/4s. The big things that kind of went really well was Winter, definitely. I was really shocked at how well Winter goes. Having that Death Touch, but then being a 2/5 means that he's pretty bulky, and even, like, you know, people aren't going to want to block it with their, like, you know, 4 toughness things, because you're able to kill him and he's going to be fine with it. The other thing that really popped off was the Whip of Erebos, and this being reprinted in here is insane. Giving all my creatures lifelink alone was really great, but this part here, the reanimation, really paid off, because I was able to reanimate a giant Adaphage, and then I attacked one of the guys with the giant Adaphage. He didn't have enough to stop it dealing combat damage, so therefore I was able to create a token of it. The original giant Adaphage gets exiled at the beginning of my next end step, but then I have a token giant Adaphage, and then, you know, that's essentially just another one, except for the fact it's a token, right? They just are able to multiply so well, and it honestly was just insanely great being able to continuously do this. Some of the other things that were really great within it, it was really like the giant Adaphage really popped off. And Winter really great. The Demolisher spawn was going to win me the game, if not for the fact that it got countered. The Vile Mutilator as well is great as a reanimation target, because you're not casting that spell, you then don't need to sacrifice something. So it just enters, and then each person needs to sacrifice a non-token enchantment and then a non-token creature, which is really good. Crawling Sensation, as I said before about the mill, this deck has some really great mill stuff in it, and this is one of them. It just made a whole bunch of blockers for me, and also just enabled me to be able to continuously mill each upkeep. And having continuous mill, I think, in this deck is a really great thing. Not so much that kind of one-off mill, like, you know, the Dead Bridge Chant or something like that. It's good, don't get me wrong, to get a whole bunch of stuff into the graveyard at once, and it's mostly for this second part that's more important, but the continuous mill, like each upkeep or whatever, is the part that is more important and is going to be great with it. I also had a really lucky, what was it? one of the removals. Oh, the Putrefy. Putrefy coming up was really great. It can't be regenerated isn't super important, but you know, it was just a really great kind of removal piece. So the cool thing about this deck is that you can take it in so many different ways as well. If you want to keep Winter as the commander, you can keep him as the commander and take it as like a self-mill reanimation and continuously build up on that. And that's going to work perfectly fine for you in a really great option to be a really fun deck. To be able to just, play with your graveyard in a way that, I think Golgari is almost exclusively the king of that. But, that's one of the directions you can take it. There's a bunch of other different directions. So, you could take Rendmore as the secondary commander and then use him to just create a whole bunch of birds that are all goaded and then create stuff from that. Personally, that was the way that I was thinking of taking it, but my brother was like, hey, I'm building that already. And I'm like, I don't really want to build up a deck that you've already got. Yeah. The other way that I've taken it already with my other version of this was to make insect/spider tribal. And I built that up with the Swarm Weaver from Duskmourn. So I've built it up with him, and he's going to just, create a whole bunch of insects and spiders, and that's the way the deck works. And then I've got heaps of 1/1 insects and spiders that are all going to go bonkers, and it's going to be a really funny, hilarious deck. But the way that I'm going to be taking it, that's what I should add on. I should have added in this, actually. Now, I don't know if every LGS in Australia is going to do this, but my LGS is going to be using this to create like a Precon league, and that's what I'm really excited for. This Precon league that we're going to be doing over the course of the next 3 weeks from now. So this was week 1, and then week 2, week 3, week 4, and the whole point of this is that you get a Precon at the start, the random Precon from this Chaos Commander, and then from there each week, so not week 0 or whatever. Week 1, you don't make any changes. Week 2, you get to make 10 changes. So that's 10, remove 10 cards from the deck and add in 10 new cards, which is really interesting. And then you can do that each time. And then week 4, you're going to get you're going to have essentially 30 changes across it. You earn points as you play league matches and you're versing other people who are a part of the league and everything. And then, we're going to have some extra prizes at the end of it, which is really cool. And I'm really excited about this. So the way I've taken this deck is completely changing. Well, not completely, because I only have 10 changes. I'm going to be slowly changing this into a Merrin of Clan Nel Toth deck. So she is very similar to Winter in regards to the fact that she's built around reanimation and everything. But instead of her just, instead of Winter who mills and then reanimates from there, she's just based off of creatures dying, my creatures dying, and then I get to bring something back from the graveyard at the beginning of my each end step, as long as it's got, bring it back from the graveyard either into my hand or onto the battlefield, depending on how many experience counters I have and then how much mana value I have. How much mana value that card has. So I have started changing this into a little bit more sacrifice stuff. So I'm going to still keep some of that self-mill in there, but then I'm going to add in some sacrifice options to be able to ensure that things are dying, and then also to kind of buff it up in regards to just having more payoffs. So for my week 10, the first kind of big changes that I've made to kind of start this off and kind of like a beginner package for Merrin. So we've got Merrin, obviously. Merrin is here, and I've actually got a different version of here because I've got this version of her that I already had sitting around. So yeah, I've already got that here to be able to chuck in there. And then we've got, so Ashnod's was one of the first editions because I wanted some ways to just be able to, as I said, make sure that things are dying. And then also so say someone's exiling something, I want to be able to sack it before they exile it. So that way I still get this dies trigger. And then also just, you know, it's a great way to make use of tokens and everything from that. In regards to creatures, I've got a Cursed Marauder to get some sacrifice stuff, and then also like to get rid of things that opponents have, and then also be able to potentially sack itself or sack something else that I don't mind if it dies. And then I can also reanimate it with Merrin. It can also sacrifice itself, right? So that means that even if I reanimate it, I can sack itself. It gets a trigger from things dying, and then just as essentially an extra removal. We've got Ride to the Reliquary to destroy, sacrifice creatures. I've got to tutor up a land, Braids, make things sacrifice, and then make opponents sacrifice. We've got Eternal Witness, bring something back from my graveyard to my hand. There's a whole bunch of loops that I can potentially do with Merrin where I bring Eternal Witness back and then bring something back from my graveyard, and then I can sack the Eternal Witness later and then bring it back with Merrin and just, be able to cycle through my graveyard that way. Massacre Worm, I want another extra board wipe to get rid of weak things. And then also it's going to be able to remove life from opponents. And it's a great way to be able to kind of, I can sack this, then bring it back with Merrin repeatedly, which is really cool. As long as I've got the experience counters for it. As for enchantments, I've got Insidious Roots and then a Chalk Outline. So I wanted to add some things in that are when creatures leave my graveyard, create tokens. So that way I can sacrifice them with other stuff to get, Merrin, Merrin experience counters here, or be able to, use them as chump blockers or whatever. So I've got a couple different ways to do this. One is going to make, tokens that can tap for mana, as well as big plants potentially. And then the other one is creating these detectives that also create a clue token as well. So it investigates. So I get to create a clue token. So extra draw from there too is really good. And then we've also got Buried Alive. So I want to have a way to be able to tutor things from my graveyard, just straight into my from my deck into my graveyard, that then I can tutor up something that I want. So if I want to bring the Noxious Gearhulk out, I could do that to make sure I'm destroying something. Or if I want an additional way to be able to reanimate things or whatever, it's just a way to be able to get what I need into the graveyard, so that way I can use Merrin to reanimate it later. As for the cuts, I just cut some of the stuff that wasn't really going to work with this game plan, or was just just a little bit on the weaker side to add, say Harmonizer. Cut that so that way I can add in Chalk Outline, which is going to be able to create that Investigate token, which is just ways to be able to continuously draw cards, just change this card draw over to more continuous card draw, etc. And I think this is going to work relatively well. Hopefully no one from Guff is watching this video, despite the fact that they have subscribed to me. I'm really excited to see as to which direction, what changes I can make to this Merrin deck to buff it up more. And yeah, make sure you guys subscribe. Hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.